first episode of the pod.
Yeah, so this is the first episode of the pod. We're going to be doing a little bit of a reverse thing today. We're going to be doing some questions that he'll ask me, and then future episodes will be me asking the guest questions. So take it away.
Yeah, let's get into it. So the first question I wanted to ask you was, what's one mistake that you often see young entrepreneurs or starting out entrepreneurs make, and how can they fix it?
One of the biggest things that I see young entrepreneurs do that is the biggest thief of their progress is they quit too early. It's very easy to... Here, let me just back up a little bit. Let's say for myself, I've noticed that for myself, I get the exact same satisfaction when it comes to planning the task as I do when the task actually gets completed. And a lot of people have that same issue, right? When an idea is fresh, it's new, you want to dive into it, you want to expand on that idea, but you don't give yourself enough time to actually have that idea go to fruition, right? Like, yeah, it's so exciting, it's fun, and then the boring part comes, and now the boring part's actually what's going to make it happen, but the excitement is not there anymore. So a lot of young entrepreneurs will quit then, and that's when you actually have to keep going, because that's how something's actually going to happen.
Yeah, I like that. There's a book about that. I think it's by Seth Godin, and it's literally called The Dip, where it's like you start out, you get the idea, it's exciting, you start doing it, and then you go into this dip period where it's boring, where it's hard, where there's no results happening, where there's nothing exciting happening, and that's where most people quit. And yeah, I think you're right. If you can just kind of accelerate out of that dip, you can most likely see success or improvement or some sort of result.
Exactly. You have to embrace the suck, pretty much, right? Like, nothing worth getting comes easy. So if you don't embrace the suck, like the really bad part of it, it's never going to be good. You're never going to get the good part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like why things like abs are so seen as such a valuable thing in society, because you can't buy it, you can't cheat it, you just have to work hard, and it basically is just like a symbol of hard work and dedication and discipline, and that's why it's valued. And it's the same with like a Ferrari or like a successful business. They're valuable and they're worth chasing because it's hard.
Exactly. No one's going to sit down for... I was watching an Alex Hormozy video recently, and he was saying that most people won't sit down for 8 hours of focused work when it comes to building their business or just making themselves a better person, right? If you can't sit down for a solid 8 hours of straight focus, it doesn't have to be all at once, but let's say in one day, if you can't sit down with 8 hours of straight focus, it's going to be really tough for you to make anything happen.
Yeah, I feel that. How do you think that people that are starting out can be able to do that? Because I know a lot of people, they start out and as they're a regular person, right, they might have like a dopamine addiction to scrolling or like whatever it may be that makes it hard for them to focus in the beginning, whereas like entrepreneurs that have been in the game for a while have a lot of like blockers and aids to help them focus, like for example notifications off and like things like that. So what would you say to someone to help them, get that 8 hours of focused work done, especially in the beginning when their brain might still be quite fried?
I think being realistic with yourself is important. If you can't be realistic with yourself at the start, you'll move with delusion. So if 8 hours is tough, it's tough for anybody, really. But it's all about understanding the work you have to do, when you can do that work the best. For example, I get really creative late at night. I don't know what it is, but my creativity tends to spike late at night. Whereas during the day, I'm more of an analytical person, right? Looking at reports and deciphering information to make decisions, right? That's what I can do easier during the day. So when it comes to my focused work and my time blocks, it's best that I put certain tasks at the start of the day and certain tasks at the end of the day. If I was to swap my creativity and my like analytical, then everything would crumble. I wouldn't be able to do it in the morning, I wouldn't be able to do it at night. But with myself being realistic, journaling, analyzing where I'm most productive, I was then able to figure that out, and then I'm continuously optimizing it. And no one's perfect, right? No one has it perfectly.
Yeah.
But it's how fast can you get back on track? That's really what the important part is. So when it comes to young entrepreneurs who are trying to get that type of level of focus, be realistic with yourself. And not just that, journal, analyze what you can do best at what different times, and then start small, right? Start with 20 minutes. 20 minutes, take 5-minute break, right? And just do that maybe for the first week. Only work in 20-minute blocks, right? Only work in 30-minute blocks, maybe up it a little bit after that. But start realistic. Maybe it's 10 minutes that you can only do. But those 10 minutes are really, really productive. And don't forget to also reward yourself along the way, because when it comes to doing tough things like that, if you don't have some sort of system, like a positive feedback loop, you start to put a negative connotation to having to sit down and focus on what you're doing. So if you were to, let's say right now your average screen time is 6 hours and you're scrolling all the time, maybe what you should do is set a time block for an hour, or maybe even better, let's go 20 minutes. Set a time block for 20 minutes. Give yourself 5 minutes off after that. That 5 minutes, scroll. Do what you want. After that 5 minutes is done, close the app. Do another 20 minutes.
Kind of like the Pomodoro technique.
It's essentially the Pomodoro technique.
Yeah.
That's what I would say helps. And your phone, right? Like everyone has a phone. So get a Pomodoro timer, put it on your phone screen, turn off your notifications, and now you can't be on your phone while you're working because it's your timer. Right? So you got to find also little ways to hack yourself to make yourself the most efficient in what you're trying to do. Because everyone's different, right? There might be one little tweak that I do with my system that maybe doesn't work with your system. And that's why it's important to document the progress and optimize the progress as you go.
Yeah. So were you always like better at analytical work in the morning and creative work at night, or how did you kind of figure that out about yourself?
So it's something I did figure out. Essentially, it started off with me just working whenever I could work. And I needed a longer time frame to be able to actually understand this, right? If I gave up after I got into the dip, nothing would have happened, right? So I had to actually analyze myself in the dip, right? Because I don't think it's good to analyze anything when you're at the peak, right? When it's dopamine's up and everything, right? Because you're almost looking at everything with rose-colored glasses, right? It's not till things get hard when you can really ask yourself those hard questions, like, okay, my energy for this isn't as high as it once was. However, I still am very much attached to the end goal. It's just that in the moment, there's things that I find difficult to do. So when it comes to those difficult things to do, what you have to do is pause, analyze what's in front of you, and then just take a small step. And then switch it up, right? So then maybe you're doing analytical in the morning, do a little bit at night. You'll see a difference, right? It's almost like some people can't have heavy meals in the morning. They have to maybe intermittent fast because their body just doesn't agree with it, right? No one person's wrong, no one person's right. But when it comes to figuring out how to like really optimize yourself in that hard time, journaling. You journal and you analyze your work. You do your time block, right? For instance, let's say 20 minutes, and after that 5 minutes, I'm doing my brain rotting, 20 minutes, 5 minutes, and let's say after an hour, right, 3 20-minute sessions, I'll then look back and see what I did. I'll essentially debrief myself. A lot of people don't debrief themselves, especially as an entrepreneur. It gets tough to separate your mental for different things. And I found that if you don't debrief yourself in terms of what you just did and how you can improve and make it better for the next time, you don't really turn off your brain or go into like, I'm done work mode, right? Yeah, sure, we're entrepreneurs and the clock is always running. But there's also a part of it that you have to compartmentalize your thoughts at different times because you'll end up burning out. I don't really believe in burnout, but I say burning out because most people understand that term. And like when it comes to burning out, like you think that kid, that 12-year-old kid that has to be a street vendor in a developing nation who's working 12, 16-hour days just to make a few dollars to feed his family, you think he knows what burnout is?
Yeah.
Right? So like, you got to really analyze, like really look at yourself and be honest with yourself, right? Like really ask yourself those hard questions. Like, am I even meant for this? Am I even built for it? Like looking at my track record, do I have a track record of doing hard things? If you don't, it's going to be harder. So what you have to do is start exercising that muscle, because that's all it is a muscle. Exercise that muscle of doing hard things, and then the hard things become easier. And then now what someone else is really, really hard is your easy. But it's like, if you don't get into the practice of doing hard things and calcifying yourself, really, or
Your mind?
exactly,
Yeah.
calcifying,
Callousing.
callousing.
Callousing
That's
your mind, yeah.
exactly callousing your
Goggins.
mind, right? So if you don't do that, you're not going to last in the dip. You're not going to be able to analyze how you do. You're not going to be able to improve how you do either.
Yeah. So like, give me some examples of things that you've done to callous your mind to get comfortable, or I guess not comfortable, get used to doing hard things.
I've honestly been doing hard things for a very long time. So it's something that I'm relatively used to. The easiest way to do something hard is to work out,
Yep.
right? Because you're putting yourself in a stressful situation, but you choose that situation, right? When you choose that when you choose that stressful situation, you're then callousing yourself. And then when something comes up that's stressful that you can't or don't have any control over, you're then able to handle it a little bit different, right? But now it's like, how do you exercise? How do you work out? I personally have been a big fan of bodybuilding, and I wanted to also like gain muscle mass, right? So it was a bit more of a stressful type of training, as compared to maybe I'm gonna go running, maybe for 20 minutes every couple days, right? Not saying that's not hard, but there's different levels to difficulty, right? So working out is probably the easiest way to start training yourself to do something difficult. Now, the best way to do that is by creating a program. Create a program that has your goals in mind. And let's say your goal is to gain 5 pounds of muscle. So you create your program so that you're then able to get that 5 pounds. However, if you tell yourself you're going to do 5x5s for chest at a certain weight, and it's on your program, you have to do it, because that's the steps. Those are the plans to get you to your additional 5 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
Right. So if you can't even do a basic function like planning a workout, executing the workout the way you planned it, even though it's difficult, you're gonna have a hard time in business. Now, I'm not saying it's exercise that has to be that hard thing you train yourself with. It could be another discipline, right? You could be a musician that also has an entrepreneurial desire, right? Learning an instrument is tough. It's very disciplined work. And someone that's disciplined in music, I have the confidence that they can be disciplined also in entrepreneurship, right? Again, it doesn't have to be music. It could be maybe somebody is really adamant about learning languages and they've been able to learn 2 languages, another on their 3rd language. Someone like that, who's used to doing hard things like learning a language, is probably going to be disciplined enough to go through that dip when it comes to entrepreneurship, right? One of the things about entrepreneurship is that you have to be almost a well-rounded person to even become an entrepreneur. You can't really have a singular skill or a singular specialty. It's going to be really tough, especially because at the start, entrepreneurs are always wearing different hats, and you have to be able to switch your hats, switch gears, and do what you have to in a different area.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, it becomes really, really difficult to push anything forward, right? So you have to be able to learn something new, which is also another difficult thing, right? So overall, I think when it comes to how to make those things easier, in terms of entrepreneurship, you need to analyze yourself, journal, and see how you're already doing things. And if you're doing things in a way that maybe you think is too easy, maybe readjust, right? Because easy is it's the thief of progress, right? If something is easy, it becomes like, I'm not saying easy is bad, but if you can't do hard things, easy becomes bad.
Yeah, 100%. I want to circle back to Alex Hormozy, and one thing that he talks about a lot is like the lonely chapter and what you have to go through when you transition from your old group of friends where you might have been partying a lot, where you might have been just going out and having fun and acting your age, right? When you start to become an entrepreneur, you kind of have to step away from a lot of those things and really start saying no. Like, no, bro, I can't go out tonight. Like, I need to work on the business. No, bro, sorry, I'm going to go to the gym instead. Like, things like that. So what would you tell someone to almost help them say no? Because I know how difficult it can be in the beginning to say no. But one thing I did recognize that after you say no enough times, your friends just kind of like stop asking you to come because they generally know what the answer is going to be for certain activities, right? Like going to the club, for example. But yeah, what advice would you have for someone that is going to have to go through that?
Advice for someone that's going to have to go through that is you need to set expectations, even with your friends. If you have certain goals that you want to hit, let your friends know. And if they're really your friends, they'll support you. I have this saying that a friend is someone that wants the best for you, even when you don't want the best for yourself. Right? And that's the second part is really what's important, right? Like, maybe the club isn't something that you need to do. A real friend will be like, yeah, sure, I might like clubbing, but I know Ty has this goal, this vision. I want to support him in it. So I'm not going to distract him with these things. I have friends that, still do those types of things, and they still hit me up all the time about it, but I say no, right? And they respect that I say no, but they continuously also ask. I have friends that don't ask anymore, right? And really to circle it back around, I never really was the kind of person anyway to say no to my goals for a short term or a easy gratification. Ever since high school, because I did my e-commerce first in high school, people party in high school. Many times I would rather just stay in my room researching e-commerce. And it was those nights that I would stay at home researching e-commerce or researching business that help compound the knowledge that I have now. It's a matter of when you start, right? So let's say for your friends and trying to, communicate to them that, hey, I have this goal and this thing, right? Set the expectation earlier on with your friends, right? And it'll be a lot easier to develop that relationship moving forward. And if you're having a shift in your life, talk to your friends about it. Like, hey guys, I'm having this shift in my life. I used to really like doing these things like clubbing or, just being degenerate. However, I think I'm meant for more. I think I have a higher purpose on this earth. And I owe it to myself and everyone around me, even you guys, my friends, I owe it to you guys for me to see this thing through. Because you wouldn't know how you inspire people. You wouldn't know how having that conversation would inspire your friend who maybe was just one step below you in terms of his process to getting to where you were at. And you communicating that thing was just that domino that needed to happen to have the whole thing go, right? So never look down on your friends for what they're doing, right? And just hope for the best, right? Like if they're truly your friends, they'll stick around. And if they're not, it might be tough. You might grieve a little bit, right? Because losing a friend is like losing somebody, right? And there is a grieving process around that. But you have to have a strong enough why. You have to know why you're doing it. And if that's strong enough, your friends will also understand and they'll stick by your side.
So I have a tattoo right here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it says DG. It stands for delayed gratification. Do you want to explain what that is and why it's important?
Yeah, so delayed gratification is the reason why people scroll all the time. It's because they don't know what it is. When you're scrolling on your TikTok or Instagram or whatever, you're essentially giving yourself a hit of dopamine, which is a form of gratification. And when you're satisfied, you don't work at doing anything. When you're content, you're comfortable, you don't work hard at changing where you're at. So if your life is full of comfort and it's full of these warm, fuzzy feelings, you're just sitting in comfort. If you draw a circle and everything you know is in the middle, that's who you are. Everyone you want to become or anything you want to become is outside that circle. So if you don't push out of that circle of comfort, you'll never actually push to become the person that you want to be. So delayed gratification could be, instead of doing that 20 minutes and then that 5 minutes, which is also delayed gratification, you can make it even longer, right? Or you can set a celebration at the end of a goal. I like to make certain goals for myself in terms of milestones, right? When I hit a certain revenue mark, I got a watch. I love that watch, right? And there's certain things you can do to motivate you to continuously keep going through that hard stuff. Those rich people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, those guys, they delay gratification. Even where they're at, they delay gratification. Anyone in any point of their life, if they delay gratification, will unlock a new side of themselves that they never even knew that they could. When you sit down and you focus for 2 hours straight, not even doing that 20-minute Pomodoro method, and you sit down and focus for 2 hours straight, and you finish your task, and you get up off your desk, that feels better than doing 20 minutes and 5, 20 minutes and 5, 20 minutes and 5, because it's harder to do that 2 hours straight. Obviously, you can't maybe do it right away, but you delay that gratification. After that 2 hours is done, maybe you eat a chocolate bar, your favorite chocolate, have a piece of that, right? So you want to celebrate the small wins, right? Like small gratification, maybe like tiny things like I have this, guilty pleasure. I like, I don't know, Kinder eggs. So maybe at the end of this week, if I hit all my marks, I'll go buy a Kinder egg for myself. Could be something small, right? What I like to do is I like to reward my inner child, right? So I like toys, I like cars, right? I'll buy some toys if I hit a certain mark, right? It doesn't have to be anything super extravagant or super big. It can be something small, but something that really like warms your soul. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking for a Batmobile that I had when I was a kid, right? I was maybe 6 years old. I had this one Batmobile. I still think about it all the time. I'm gonna set a goal. I'm gonna buy that Batmobile. The Batmobile is no more than like $100. Like, yeah, sure, it's $100 and it's a toy from however long ago. So yes, it's expensive in terms of how toys go. But it's like, when it comes to $100 based on what I can produce, if I hit my goal, it's just a drop in the bucket, right? However, once I get that Batmobile, I'm gonna be so excited, bro. I'm telling you, I might even put it in the shadow box in my office. Because I had such good memories with that thing when I was younger, right? And I want that back again, right? So my gratification for a certain goal I'm gonna hit is once I hit that goal, I'm gonna get myself that Batmobile, right? It could be once you hit a certain goal, you take yourself out for a nice dinner, right? Maybe you have a really, really big goal, your yearly goal. If you hit your yearly goal, you'll take a vacation, right? But you don't wanna reward yourself for not doing anything, which is what everyone thinks they should. It's like, what's the point of, like, participation medals. Ever since I was a kid, I never understood them. They actually made me mad. It made me mad that because I was really big on track and field. Even like in middle school, I just really loved it because running, jumping, whatever, right? But I would work my ass off, and I would try to get first place. Yeah, sure, I'd get first place sometimes, I'd get second place, I'd even get third place sometimes. But then I was rewarded for those first, second, or thirds. And then I see people with participation medals at the end or participation ribbons at the end, and I'm just like, what was even the point? Right? I'm not saying that it's not necessary for some people. Sure, maybe you need it for some people, but you got to analyze yourself and ask yourself, am I rewarding myself for doing nothing? Most people, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't feel good today, so I'm not going to work, and I'm gonna go order some Red Lobster and just pig out. That must be nice.
Yeah.
I couldn't even enjoy the meal if I know I didn't work enough.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, there was a study, it's called the marshmallow test, and they basically just put kids in a room, put a marshmallow on the table and said, you can have this marshmallow now, or you can wait 15 minutes and you get a second marshmallow, and so on and so forth. So if you get to the second marshmallow, 15 more minutes, third marshmallow. And it's literally just about waiting that 15 minutes for the second marshmallow for as long as possible until one day you have so many marshmallows that you can just cash out and do whatever.
You can eat 10 of them and still have 100 left.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like once you get to that point where you have 100 marshmallows and you can eat 10, the person beside you who's been eating their marshmallow every 15 minutes is like, how did you eat 15 marshmallows and how do you still have 100 left? Because they're in that negative loop of, I need gratification right now, right now, right now. Learn how to do hard things. Like, the person that you want to be is on the other side of that thing that you're avoiding doing.
Yeah.
And it sounds so cliche. And you know about this. So I had a friend of mine come by yesterday here, and he was just going through town, and he just wanted to come by and ask questions about just kind of what I'm doing and what we're doing actually here. Because not many people get to experience what this is, but a part of us, I wouldn't say is delusional, but we have faith, right? We have faith in ourselves that we can make this happen. And when he came by, you were there, I told him, it might sound cringe, but listen to a podcast when you're driving. And you even added on to that as well. Like, look at what you're doing, analyze what you're doing, and see how you can improve it. Listen to a podcast if you're going to be driving. Because he was driving another few hours after he left here. But we told him, hey, listen to a podcast on your way out. You might find some value, right? When you're doing certain things, try to habit stack. And I mentioned that, yeah, it might sound cringe, but it helps. And one of the things that he mentioned was, bro, cringe or no cringe, it doesn't matter. Look what you've built. Look where you are, right? Yeah, sure, cringe, but look what you've built, right? So a lot of people, I'm glad he was able to understand that, right? But some people won't understand it. Your parents might not understand it, right? But it's like you have to go through that cringe, right? When you start posting on social media and you're not getting as many views as you want, you got to go through that cringe, right? Because the same stuff that you do before you make it are the same things you do when you do make it, right? Like, if, let's say you're trying to build a business like I have here, right? You still got to prospect. You got to make sure you can book meetings, make sure you can communicate, right? Because it's an aspect of sales. If I couldn't sell, I couldn't build my business to where I'm at, right? ABC, always be closing, right? And then it's like all these little things that I've done have essentially come together, even though they might be cringe, have come together to the point where now they're working, right? And now they're working, I'm still doing the same things that I was doing when things weren't working, right? Yeah, sure, I've optimized a little bit. It's the same thing. I remember having the realization years ago, and I'm just like sitting there, and I'm like, I've literally been doing the same thing for the past 4 or 5 years. Except 4 or 5 years ago, I wasn't making any money, but now I am. And that's that dip, right? That's that time frame where things suck. It's not fun. But it's like, if you can't do it when you have nothing, you're not going to do it when you have something. And people don't get that.
Yeah, no, one of my favorite sayings is, it's only cringy, corny, and weird until it works, and then you're a genius, you're smart, all that, you know? And it's so true, like you were saying, like your first piece of content is going to suck. Your first product is going to suck. every single person that is successful went through that first phase where it just sucks.
Yeah.
And people might be making fun of you, or no one's buying your product, or whatever it is. But any hate you might get, it only comes from the bottom, because I'm sure you guys have heard that quote. It's been around TikTok. The business person, the successful entrepreneur won't make fun of you for starting a business.
Never.
The successful race car driver won't make fun of you for hitting the track for the first time. Like, you know, like, people above you are so focused on winning that they're never going to cast hate below. It always comes from the bottom. And yeah, you just got to keep pushing and get through that first initial period of like weirdness, of cringeness, of hardness. And I'm not saying that it gets easier, because it's always going to be hard. There's always going to be like fires that you have to put out and problems that you have to solve. But you just become stronger. You build systems, routines, and habits, and yeah.
100%. 100%. And like, that's important too, is that like no one that's ever doing better than you is going to ever look down on you.
Yeah.
It's always a person that's not doing better than you that's going to always cast hate or point fingers in whatever regard that might be. And you have to be aware of that. You have to be able to analyze and see that. Because a lot of the times we're in these echo chambers where the people that are telling us we can't do it, the people that are telling us it'll never work, are the ones that are maybe the closest to us. And we have to be able to decipher the information that they're giving us, right? Like, sure, they might have an aspect of them that got them to a certain point, but is that the point that you want to get to, right? You almost want to take the advice with a grain of salt to get you where they are, and then take it to the next step and find that next mentor or that next teacher for you, right? But there's levels to it, right? And you don't want to stay at the same level for longer than you need to.
What advice would you have on like finding a mentor, or like, because a lot of people don't have any mentors in their life, or there's no one in their life that they could even look up to. So like, what advice would you have to them?
I would say at first, maybe don't try to look for somebody in person. I've always had this thing where I knew I didn't have people around me at the start anyway. At the start, I didn't have people around me that were doing what I wanted to do. So luckily, I'm around in this time and we have the internet. So I then essentially created a round table of entrepreneurs and business people, and even athletes actually, that I thought have done extraordinary work. And I had my round table of athletes and business people, and the only content I would consume was theirs. I would never consume any like entertainment. I wouldn't watch Netflix. Like, this was, I think, for a solid year and a half, where anything I would consume was from these people. And that started to build my mindset. It started to change my paradigm. And after I knew it, I became the kind of person that would talk like these people, right? And it's a matter of, if you hang around with 5 millionaires, you'll be the sixth. But it's like, if you don't know 5 millionaires, go on YouTube, find someone that has a bunch of content, find someone that's consistent with content, and then just hang around them, right? Have them be your round table, and you'll start to develop into a person that now when you go around into the world, people will notice something different about you and they'll gravitate towards you. And then now you'll find mentors and people just in real life, because you become the person that's so magnetic and people gravitate towards you. And you just mentioned too how someone doing better than you is never going to push down on you, right? So now you become that person that's very open, not too open, but you're open about what you're doing, what your goals are, and what your vision is. That person will come around. It's a numbers game. It's not like I'm going to go out there and find the perfect mentor right away. Some people might show as a good mentor, but maybe aren't the best mentor, right? And it's always about taking it with a grain of salt and analyzing yourself, and then the information that you take, you want to like not just take it blindly, right? Like, if I'm in e-commerce and I meet somebody who has an e-commerce business that's doing $300,000 a month, I'll probably listen to them, right? Quite blindly, because they're doing what I want to do. But let's say I want to get into e-commerce and I know somebody who has maybe a small brick and mortar store, and maybe they don't have an online presence or anything like that, but there's still something you can learn from them. You can learn inventory management, right? If you have a remote warehouse, then maybe you can learn some things about how to manage your inventory from them, right?
Yeah.
Or even sourcing, because obviously they source things for their brick and mortar, right? Not saying that you can't learn anything from everybody or somebody, but like, who are you going to take more information from, right? Not to say you shut down that person that has a brick and mortar, right? And maybe not to say you listen to every last thing that the person that has $300,000 a month e-commerce has. But you want to at least have those people in your network, right? You want to have them around you, and then you can speak candidly maybe about some of the things that you're going through, and you can get different perspectives. And then from those two different perspectives, you can then build your own perspective. But you never want to not think for yourself. You want to have some sort of agency around what you do.
Yeah, like a filter almost.
100%.
Yeah, I like that. And it's honestly such a blessing that we have the internet. And for you watching this as well, like, we have the internet with an expert in literally every single field. Anything that you want to do, there's someone online that's an expert in it that could probably teach you. Or even YouTube, right? You can go on YouTube and learn any skill. And so for us to be in this time, to watch podcasts like this, to go on YouTube and have so much knowledge is such a blessing. And like, we have to take advantage of it while we can, and really seize the opportunity that this internet stuff has given us. And even if your thing is off the internet is your place to learn and to grow and to connect. And it's just a tool that you need to squeeze as much juice out of it as possible.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking, we've done a lot of content this past weekend, and it's been really good. I think people that are watching this, if you ever thought about doing content, just start recording what you're doing and just post it. Don't really think about the noise that's around. Like, what deep down in your heart you want to accomplish and what you want to do. And it might be hard because people around you might not understand it, and that's okay. That's just part of life. Your why has to be stronger than their doubt. Because if their doubt's stronger than your why, they'll win. And that's something that you can apply to every area of your life. If your desire or your faith for something is not as big as the doubts and the naysayers around you, it's never going to work. It's never going to work because it's just human nature.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. And want to do the outro?
Yeah, thanks for watching. And make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Be sure to look out for the next vlog and the next podcast as well. And we'll see you in the next one.
See you next time. Don't forget, down below, comment, like, subscribe.